The 1980 Arizona Groundwater Management Act, GMA, is one of the most significant pieces of water legislation in Arizona's history. It established a framework for conserving and regulating groundwater to ensure long-term water sustainability in a state heavily reliant on this vital resource. The act also created the Arizona Department of Water Resources, ADWR, to oversee water planning, permitting, and enforcement of the state's groundwater laws. Purpose of the 1980 Groundwater Management Code. The purpose of the 1980 Groundwater Management Code was to address Arizona's critical groundwater overdraft problem. Prior to 1980, groundwater was being pumped faster than it could naturally recharge, leading to declining water tables and land subsidence. The act sought to control severe groundwater depletion in critical areas of the state, promote efficient water use, and encourage the use of renewable surface water supplies, such as the Central Arizona Project, CAP, ensure long-term water availability for agriculture, municipalities, and industry. Establish a regulatory framework that balances growth with resource conservation. The act shifted Arizona's water policy from unrestricted pumping to a regulated and sustainable management system that continues to guide state water policy today. Active Management Areas, AMAs. ARS. GER 45402, Title 45, Chapter 2, Article 2. The Act created active management areas, AMAs, designated regions, where groundwater pumping and use are closely monitored and regulated due to high water demand and overdraft risk. The 5 AMAs are Phoenix AMA, Pinal AMA, Prescott AMA, Tucson AMA, Santa Cruz AMA. Within each AMA, the ADWR develops management plans every 10 years, establishing conservation goals for municipal, industrial, and agricultural water users. Each plan includes programs for water metering, reporting, conservation practices, and limitations on new agricultural irrigation. Assured Water Supply, AWS, 7 elements within AMAs. In AMAs, a subdivision cannot be approved unless it has an assured water supply, AWS, for at least 100 years. This is to ensure that new development does not outpace the availability of water resources. According to ADWR, the 7 elements of an AWS include physical availability, proof that sufficient water exists for 100 years, continuous legal availability, water rights or contracts are legally secure, financial capability, the developer can fund delivery, treatment, and infrastructure, water quality standards. Water meets Arizona Department of Environmental Quality, ADEQ standards. Consistency with AMA management goals. The project aligns with the area's conservation objectives. Consistency with land use plans. Water use fits local zoning and planning. Membership in the CAGR if needed. Developers relying on groundwater must enroll in the Central Arizona Groundwater Replenishment District, in CAGRD, to offset groundwater pumping with renewable water sources. In AMAs, all wells must be registered and monitored by ADWR. This includes metering and reporting of annual groundwater withdrawals to ensure compliance with usage limits. Grandfathered Groundwater Rights, ARS. Title 45, Chapter 2, Article 5. When the GMA took effect, existing users were granted grandfathered groundwater rights, allowing them to continue lawful use within defined limits. These rights fall into 3 main categories. Irrigation, grandfathered rights, IGR, for agricultural lands irrigated between 1975 and 1980. Type 1, non-irrigation rights, associated with land, converted from farming to non-irrigation use. These rights stay with the land. Type 2, non-irrigation rights, transferable rights used for non-agricultural purposes, such as industry or power generation. These rights protect existing users while limiting new groundwater extraction within AMAs. Groundwater use. Outside of AMAs, ARS Title 45, Chapter 2, Article 2. Outside AMAs, groundwater use remains largely governed by the doctrine of reasonable use, meaning property owners can pump groundwater beneath their land for beneficial use without a withdrawal permit. However, wells still must comply with ADWR construction and registration standards. Although less regulated, continued monitoring helps prevent overpumping in rural areas experiencing rapid growth. For these areas, developers must demonstrate an adequate water supply, which includes 5 elements similar to those for AMAs: physical, legal, continuous, quality, and financial availability. However, these standards are less stringent and primarily enforced through disclosure to buyers rather than pre-approval by ADWR. Irrigation Non-Expansion Areas, INAs, ARS, Title 45, Chapter 2, Article 3. An irrigation non-expansion area, INA, is a region designated by the ADWR, where new agricultural irrigation is prohibited to prevent groundwater overdraft. Farmers in INAs may continue irrigating historically cultivated lands but cannot expand their irrigated acreage. Currently, INAs exist in Joseph City, Harquahala, and Douglas. The goal is to preserve remaining groundwater supplies and prevent agricultural expansion that could deplete aquifers. Water service area rights. Water service in Arizona can be provided by several entities. Cities, towns, and municipalities operate municipal water systems and must comply with AMA and AWS requirements. They often use CAP water, wells, and reclaimed water. Private water companies, regulated by the Arizona Corporation Commission, ACC, for rates, service quality, and territorial service boundaries. Irrigation districts provide water for agricultural and sometimes residential use, managing delivery infrastructure and groundwater recharge projects. Each provider must demonstrate long-term water availability and compliance with ADWR oversight. Wells, ARS Title 45, Chapter 2, Article 10. Under this article, all wells, exempt and non-exempt, must be registered with ADWR before construction. Exempt wells, pumping less than 35 gallons per minute, are typically for domestic or livestock use. Non-exempt wells, greater than 35 GPM, are used for agriculture, industry, or municipal systems, and require permits, metering, and annual reporting. Wells must meet construction standards to protect aquifers from contamination and cross-aquifer leakage. Transfer of well rights. Well rights may be transferred under certain conditions, such as sale of property or change in ownership of a water company. Transfers must be reported to ADWR to maintain accurate records of groundwater use and ownership. Unauthorized transfers or unreported use may result in penalties or loss of rights. In summary, the 1980 Groundwater Management Act created the foundation for Arizona's sustainable water future by regulating groundwater withdrawals, ensuring responsible land development through assured and adequate water supply programs, and establishing ADWR to enforce compliance. The act balances growth and conservation in a desert state where water is the most valuable resource.